Once again, the Queen of Consorts surprises us, but not in a good way.
Made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia.
Prince William had entered the private council room expecting a routine discussion about the National Remembrance Service. Instead, he found Queen Camilla seated beside a ceremonial order bearing 3 words that stopped him cold. Princess of Wales. The title belonged to his mother's memory, and now to his wife's royal position. Yet Camilla was demanding the right to use it publicly, and William's stunned silence revealed that a boundary had just been crossed. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William felt the tension before anyone spoke. An urgent summons had brought him to Clarence House, the London residence where 2 advisors waited behind a closed door. He expected a discussion about seating for the National Remembrance Service, a formal ceremony honoring royal public service. But no private secretaries were allowed inside. That absence told him this was not routine. Camilla pushed the request toward Charles. She asked to use Princess of Wales as a secondary ceremonial style during the service, meaning an additional title displayed for that occasion. Her argument was direct. Marriage to the king had connected her to every title attached to him when he was heir. She believed protocol could restore what history had denied her. William read the page twice. Then he lowered it and stared at the Queen. The words cut deeply, because Princess Diana had carried that title through humanitarian work, struggle, and a death that still shaped him. Catherine now held it as his wife. Placing Camilla's disputed style above Catherine's name would not feel ceremonial. It would feel like an invasion. Charles pressed one hand against the table as his son asked whether he had known. The king hesitated. That pause struck harder than denial. William realized his father was not surprised by the request, only by his reaction. The danger deepened when an advisor admitted wording had reached the Lord Chamberlain's office, the department responsible for ceremonies and palace arrangements. Camilla had not raised an idea. She had begun moving it through the monarchy. William turned to the supporting note and found the final insult. It discussed marriage, hierarchy, precedent, and entitlement. Yet Diana's name appeared nowhere. The omission was deliberate. Someone had tried to claim her title by writing her out of the argument. William rose and warned Camilla that the title was not an ornament waiting in an archive. She answered that history could not be controlled by grief. But his anger reached beyond protocol, because behind those 3 words stood 3 women, 1 wounded son, and a king whose silence was becoming entirely impossible to defend. To the palace, the dispute concerned titles, hierarchy, and historical precedent. To William, it concerned the woman whose absence had shaped nearly every important day of his life. Diana had carried the title into hospitals, shelters, minefields, and millions of homes. Catherine inherited it with humility. Camilla now wanted to claim it through procedure. Behind the formal language, 3 royal identities were colliding, and the prince was being forced to decide what loyalty demanded of him. William returned to Windsor, carrying more than anger. He carried memories of standing beside his mother as a boy, watching aides prepare her for public engagements, and hearing them call her Princess of Wales. The title was not simply a royal style, meaning an official form of address attached to rank. It was tied to Diana's voice, her suffering, and the final years they had shared before everything was taken from him. Catherine listened without interrupting as her husband explained what had happened. She had accepted the same title only after years of public duty, never pretending she could replace the woman who made it famous. The princess understood that carrying Diana's legacy required humility, because every appearance invited comparison and every decision could reopen an old wound. William finally revealed the most painful detail. Camilla's proposed wording would place both women under different versions of the same title during the remembrance service. Catherine remained composed, then slowly removed her engagement ring and turned it once between her fingers. She asked one question. Had Charles approved it? The prince described his father's silence, the hesitation, and the defensive words that followed. Catherine understood immediately. The king had not written the request, but he had almost certainly encouraged the queen by saying the historical question deserved proper consideration. Those words had given Camilla enough confidence to push forward. Camilla's motive was darker than ambition alone. She had become queen. Yet Diana's shadow still marked the one royal identity she could never fully possess. To her, the forbidden title represented the place where public judgment had permanently defeated her. Claiming it would not increase her legal power, but it would weaken Catherine's uniqueness and rewrite the emotional balance of the family. William left the room and opened a small drawer containing one of Diana's handwritten birthday cards. He read a single line, closed it firmly, and made his decision. The title would not be divided. Catherine stopped him before he could leave. She warned him not to fight only as a grieving son. He had to fight as the future king, because someone inside the palace had already decided Camilla's request was worth protecting. That warning forced William to look beyond her ambition and toward the hidden encounter that had turned an old resentment into a formal demand. The demand had not begun in a council room. It began 6 weeks earlier, during a private rehearsal for the National Remembrance Service, when Camilla saw Catherine's title placed beneath Diana's name in a commemorative tribute. One line on one ceremonial card reopened a resentment the palace believed had been buried for decades. By the end of that rehearsal, the Queen had asked a question no courtier wanted to answer, and a senior advisor had given her precisely the encouragement she needed. Camilla had already been assigned the highest place beside Charles at the service. The National Remembrance Ceremony was designed to honor royal humanitarian work across generations, meaning public service carried out by members of the monarchy over many years. Diana would be recognized for her work involving homelessness, HIV awareness, and landmine removal, while Catherine would deliver a reading as the current Princess of Wales. The Queen's rank was secure, yet her name remained completely separate from that legacy. Camilla noticed the wording during a closed rehearsal in the palace music room. The card read, "Legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales, reading by Catherine, Princess of Wales." She held it longer than necessary, then asked why her own historical connection had been erased when she had married Charles while he was still Prince of Wales. The question was calm. The bitterness beneath it was not. A senior ceremonial advisor answered too quickly. He said the title had always been considered too emotionally sensitive for the Queen to use. Camilla stiffened, placed the card on the piano, and asked, "Sensitive for whom?" No one replied. That silence told her more than any formal explanation could have done. Catherine entered before the tension faded. She looked from the abandoned card to Camilla's face and understood immediately. The Queen told her that no woman should possess a permanent monopoly over history. The princess answered that memory was not monopoly. Neither raised her voice, but both knew the argument had crossed into dangerous ground. Camilla acted that same evening. She met privately with constitutional historian Sir Malcolm Avery, who explained in a documented consultation that palace ceremonial language could recognize a historical association without changing Catherine's legal position. A ceremonial style was simply wording used for a specific royal occasion, but even that narrow opening was enough. Charles heard the request later that night. Exhausted and unwilling to begin another argument, he told Camilla, "Have it examined properly." The king meant review. She heard permission. Within days, a draft appeared calling her Queen Camilla, formally entitled Princess of Wales. She rejected it as weak and demanded something stronger. When William learned Catherine had already faced Camilla once, his restraint vanished, and the next meeting would leave no historian, advisor, or husband with anywhere to hide. William did not summon a committee. He did not send a private secretary or hide behind constitutional language. He entered the king's library, closed the door himself, and placed Camilla's title request between them. Charles stood near the fireplace. The Queen remained seated. Then the prince asked one devastating question. Was she truly prepared to use his mother's title in front of his wife, his children, and the country that still remembered Diana by that name? William had demanded complete privacy, because aides could soften words, redirect blame, and turn personal betrayal into procedure. No one would do that now. He explained that Catherine's position depended on clarity. A ceremonial claim meant wording used for a specific royal occasion, but giving Camilla a parallel version would blur the line between the reigning queen, the current Princess of Wales, and the woman whose legacy the service was meant to honor. Camilla refused to retreat. She told William she had spent years accepting limits created to protect other people's feelings. She had endured silence, judgment, and public hatred while standing beside Charles. The Queen would not allow Diana's memory to erase her marriage, her service, or her place in royal history. William pushed the request back across the table. He said the title had never been avoided because Camilla lacked rank. It had been avoided because using it would look like claiming the identity of the woman whose marriage had been destroyed. The words landed hard. Charles lowered his eyes, but the prince did not stop. Camilla rose so sharply that her chair scraped across the floor. She accused William of allowing childhood grief to control the monarchy's present. He stepped closer and answered that grief had not written the revised program. Grief had not contacted the Lord Chamberlain, the senior palace officer responsible for ceremonies and official arrangements, and grief had not acted behind Catherine's back. Charles finally admitted that he had permitted a historical review. The king insisted he had only allowed advisors to examine the question, not approve the title. William asked whether he would have allowed it to appear publicly. His father could not answer directly. That silence revealed how close the request had come to becoming real. William delivered his warning without raising his voice. If the claim moved forward, he and Catherine would withdraw from the remembrance service. Their absence would create a public scandal and turn Camilla's demand into the only story Britain discussed. The prince left without another word. Charles picked up the proposal, folded it once, and told the Queen that formal authority would now decide the matter. The confrontation had transformed a private grievance into a test of royal control, and every path now led toward the office capable of deciding whose name would survive on the final order. Royal power rarely announces itself with raised voices. Sometimes it appears as a single line removed from a program before the ink is dry. The decision now rested with the Lord Chamberlain, the king's most senior ceremonial officer, but the palace machinery surrounding him was already divided. Camilla possessed Charles's reluctant permission. William possessed the threat of withdrawal. Catherine possessed the title itself. And one exhausted king sat alone, knowing any choice would wound someone he loved. The Lord Chamberlain controlled the exact wording of the ceremonial order, the official document setting out names, roles, and positions for the service. No unusual title could appear without his approval and Charles's final authority. That made his office the last barrier between Camilla's demand and a public announcement the palace might never be able to reverse. Both sides understood the stakes. Camilla argued that marriage and history connected her to the title. William argued that public trust depended on clarity, because Catherine was the living Princess of Wales, and Diana remained inseparable from its emotional legacy. The dispute had moved beyond wording. It had become a battle over who could shape royal memory. Charles read the competing submissions late into the night. He reached the paragraph describing Diana's lasting connection to the title, removed his glasses, and placed the file on the desk. For several minutes, the king did not turn the page. Protecting Camilla would defend the woman who had endured years of hostility beside him. Refusing her would admit that one part of his former marriage remained morally untouchable, even by the Queen. William's handwritten note made the choice even harder. The prince stated that Catherine would not attend a ceremony where her identity was deliberately weakened. He ended with words Charles could not dismiss. "Please do not make me defend Mother against you again." The message was not loud, but it carried decades of pain. Palace advisors delivered their legal view in a documented briefing. Camilla could not become the current Princess of Wales while Catherine held the title. Charles could, however, authorize ceremonial wording recognizing the Queen's historical association with it during his years as heir. It was a narrow compromise, carefully designed to avoid changing Catherine's position. Camilla rejected it. She refused the phrase, historically associated with the Princess of Wales title, and insisted the name itself be spoken beside her own. Anything less, she believed, would confirm that Diana still held power over her. Charles finally signed a private instruction and sealed it inside a red dispatch folder, the case used for confidential royal papers. Neither Camilla nor William was told the result. Yet the Lord Chamberlain immediately halted the service program before printing. By sunrise, the palace knew a decision had been made, but its first consequence would appear not on paper, but on Camilla's face when she discovered what Charles had signed. Camilla received the decision in the smallest of rooms, without ceremony and without Charles beside her. The Lord Chamberlain handed her a sealed copy and waited while she read the first paragraph. Her expression did not change until she reached the final line. Then she lowered the page, stared toward the closed door, and understood that the king had chosen to protect Diana's title, Catherine's position, and William's loyalty over her demand. Camilla read the ruling twice. It formally rejected any use of Princess of Wales beside her name, and confirmed that Catherine alone would hold the living title. Diana's historic designation would also remain untouched in the remembrance tribute. The order was final, meaning palace officials could not alter it without direct approval from the monarch. The Lord Chamberlain had already removed the disputed style from every draft. Her place at the service remained secure, but only as queen. No parallel title would appear. No ceremonial wording would suggest that she shared Catherine's position or stood inside Diana's legacy. Camilla folded the page with unusual care and asked whether William had seen it before she did. The senior official answered no. That single word changed everything. Charles had not surrendered to his son's pressure in public. The king had made the choice himself. Camilla's voice remained controlled, but the pain beneath it was unmistakable. She told the Lord Chamberlain that she had endured decades of public hostility for Charles. Yet when Diana's memory and her own dignity collided, the monarch still could not stand openly beside her. The official said nothing, because no ceremonial answer could soften that wound. Charles entered her private sitting room later that day. Camilla did not rise. He explained that protecting the monarchy sometimes required refusing even those closest to the sovereign. She answered that he had not merely refused a title. He had refused her right to challenge a judgment imposed long before she became queen. Charles then revealed the harshest part, through the signed order. Future palace material could never describe Camilla as having held, declined, or possessed the Princess of Wales title. The route was not delayed. It was permanently closed. Catherine heard the decision through a private briefing from her secretary and responded in a way no one expected. She asked that no palace statement portray Camilla as defeated. The princess understood the humiliation and refused to turn Diana's legacy into a weapon of punishment. Camilla withdrew from the next planning meeting and returned the service folder unopened. William believed the crisis was finally ending. Catherine knew better. The title had been protected, yet the family remained fractured until she walked toward Camilla without William, Charles, or a single courtier beside her. Catherine did not arrive with a message from William or an instruction from the king. She entered Camilla's sitting room alone and asked the attending aide to close the door from the outside. For the first time since the dispute began, there were no advisors, no documents, and no men interpreting what either woman meant. There was only the present Princess of Wales facing the Queen, who had tried to claim the title, and the painful truth neither had spoken openly. Catherine knew the royal ruling had solved the constitutional problem, but not the human damage. Constitutional meant the formal rules that shape how the monarchy operates, and those rules had protected her position. They had not healed humiliation, resentment, or the bitterness now hanging over every future family gathering. Camilla agreed that no notes would be taken. Charles did not know what would be said, and William had not been told the meeting was happening. For once, neither woman had palace machinery behind her. They would speak without protection. Camilla broke the silence first. She admitted that becoming queen had already given her the highest title she could hold. She had not truly needed another one. What she wanted was proof that Diana's memory could no longer define her as permanently unworthy. Catherine answered with equal honesty. Carrying the title had never made her feel victorious. It reminded her of public comparison, William's grief, and the danger of being treated as a replacement for someone who could never return. The princess told Camilla that the name came with pressure, not triumph. Camilla poured tea, but neither woman touched it. Catherine placed her hand beside the cup and said, Diana's memory could not give one woman dignity by stripping dignity from another. Yet trying to seize the title could only reopen the wound and deepen the very judgment Camilla wanted to escape. Camilla then revealed the truth through a private spoken admission. Charles had never promised to approve the request. She had pushed forward because she believed his love would stop him from refusing her publicly. For the first time, the queen accepted that she had mistaken his silence for support. Camilla took a blank card and wrote that she accepted the king's ruling without reservation. She added that she would never seek ceremonial or historical use of the title again. This was no forced retreat. It was her own surrender of the claim. Catherine asked her to remain at the remembrance service and join a separate tribute honoring women who had transformed royal public service. Camilla agreed. Their understanding was fragile but real. Yet outside those closed doors, the names Camilla, Diana, and Princess of Wales were already exploding across Britain in a storm the palace could no longer contain. By midday, the private dispute had become a national reckoning. Broadcasters interrupted regular programming. Crowds gathered outside palace gates. Newspapers prepared front pages dominated by Diana's face, Catherine's title, and Camilla's rejected claim. Yet the public response was not simply anger toward one woman. It exposed a deeper question about royal memory, whether the monarchy could move forward without erasing the emotional promises the country believed it had made to the past. A palace correspondent broke the story during a live broadcast, revealing that Charles had rejected a request involving Camilla and the Princess of Wales title. The report offered few details, but the names were enough. Within minutes, the dispute moved from guarded rooms into homes across Britain. Buckingham Palace responded with a restrained statement. The palace, meaning the central office that speaks officially for the monarch, confirmed that the present use of the title remained unchanged and that the remembrance service would continue. It did not blame Camilla. It did not mention William's threat to withdraw. The silence around those details only deepened public suspicion. The London Chronicle delivered the most striking image the next morning. Its front page carried a black and white photograph of Diana. Beneath the headline, "Her name remains." A smaller image showed Catherine arriving at an engagement, while Camilla appeared leaving Clarence House with her expression lowered. Kensington Palace became the emotional center of the reaction. Dozens gathered near the gates, carrying white roses. One elderly woman placed a handwritten card beside Diana's memorial area. It read, "A title can pass, love does not." That single sentence spread faster than any official statement. Public anger divided quickly. Some commentators called Camilla's request an attack on Diana and Catherine. Others argued that no woman should remain trapped forever inside hostility born decades earlier. The debate was no longer about rank alone. It had become a battle between memory and mercy. William watched the coverage beside Catherine and grew visibly unsettled as personal attacks against Camilla became harsher. The prince had wanted the title protected, not another wave of cruelty that would reopen the darkest years of his family's history. His wife understood the difference, but the public storm no longer belonged to them. Camilla's handwritten note finally changed the tone. Buckingham Palace confirmed that the Queen had voluntarily renounced any future ceremonial or historical association with the title. Her surrender showed that the conflict had ended through acceptance, not public punishment. Attention now turned to the remembrance service, where William, Catherine, Charles, and Camilla would stand together. The nation had delivered its judgment in headlines and flowers, but the monarchy's final verdict would come when 4 wounded royals faced one shared history. The remembrance service began without the disputed title, without a palace explanation, and without the confrontation many expected. Catherine entered as the sole living Princess of Wales. Camilla entered as Queen. Diana's name remained exactly where it had first appeared in the program. Yet the moment that settled the crisis was not written in any ceremonial order. It came when William looked toward the woman who had challenged his mother's legacy, and saw that she had finally chosen to stop fighting a memory she could never defeat. The final ceremonial order made every position clear. It was the official program listing the names, titles, and roles used during the service. Diana was honored as Diana, Princess of Wales. Catherine stood as the current holder of that title. Camilla appeared solely as Queen. No shared wording remained. No hidden compromise survived. Charles had restored his authority without turning his wife's humiliation into public spectacle. The king rejected the claim, protected Catherine's position, and preserved Diana's identity. Yet he also refused to present Camilla as an enemy of the crown. That restraint kept family pain from becoming ceremonial revenge. William approached Camilla before the service began. The prince did not apologize for opposing her demand, but he thanked her for withdrawing it voluntarily. She answered that some battles became destructive long after their original purpose had disappeared. For the first time, neither of them needed to win the conversation. Catherine ended the rivalry through action. During the tribute to royal women, she publicly acknowledged Camilla's work supporting victims of domestic abuse and promoting literacy. The princess gave the Queen recognition based on what she had built, not on a title connected to Diana. That distinction offered dignity without surrender. Charles reached for Camilla's hand after the tribute to his former wife concluded. She allowed the king to hold it, but kept her attention on Catherine's reading. William noticed. In that quiet moment, he understood that honoring his mother did not require denying his father's present life. Camilla finally accepted that security within the monarchy could not come from claiming every symbol once denied to her. Her place would rest on her own service, her marriage, and the role she already held. Diana's legacy did not need to be conquered. William also changed. He protected his mother's title, yet refused to let public anger destroy the Queen. The future king had defended memory without becoming ruled by vengeance. The verdict was final. Camilla's claim was permanently rejected. Catherine remained the sole living Princess of Wales. Diana's historical identity remained untouched. Charles kept his family, and William left knowing he had defended his mother without breaking the monarchy his son would one day inherit. The forbidden title remained where history had placed it, not as a prize, but as a boundary the crown finally learned to respect. The crisis was over, and the monarchy emerged not untouched, but wiser. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.